This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everybody to our meeting. So happy to see you all. Let's go ahead and start with the bell. I've got the bell here. Let's see if it rings. Last time it canceled out the sound. I saw in the video, Susie, when I watched it, that I guess my software is so good it canceled out the ding. But here we go. Let's try it.
Nope,
Anything?
nothing.
Okay, that's actually really loud, and I'm really impressed with my software. So I don't know what to say.
Well, I think, Sam, I think when you share the screen, there's a little checkbox at the bottom of the share screen that you say share sound. Try resharing the screen.
No. This is a physical bell that's
Yeah, I know,
making
but
noise.
That's bizarre.
And you
It's
can't
bizarre.
hear it. Yeah. So it's software on my computer. The microphone is literally canceling out noise. So
Oh, good. Lucky it
It
doesn't work
works.
for you.
that's some really good software. So I promise I rang the bell. I assure you all. Let's go ahead and do the four-way test. Hopefully it won't cancel out my sound on this one. So if you want to unmute yourself, what we do here, Lynn, is I just kind of click to keep cadence, but we all open up our mics and do the four-way test together. So the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the
Is
truth?
it
The truth.
Is it fair to all
Fair to all
concerned?
concerned.
Will it build goodwill
Build
or
a better
friendship?
friendship.
Friendships.
Will it be beneficial?
beneficial to all
Beneficial
concerned?
for all concerned.
Awesome. That was great. That was very, very good. Let's see. I don't see any names or faces that I don't recognize, but if you're hiding behind the camera there, let me know. Otherwise, we'll do an introduction to our lovely guest, Lynn, in just a moment. Announcements. Kimberly, I think I know what your announcement is, but hold
No,
on,
no,
just-
you don't.
Oh,
no, you don't.
okay.
In case, for those of you who don't know, they canceled RLI next week, this coming weekend because of the threat of the hurricane and low attendance, which is disappointing in the extreme, but primarily because of Nicole. So I shan't be coming down, which is depressing for me because I was so looking forward to seeing as many as I could. So they've rescheduled it for February 11th, I think. Hang on just one second. I should have been ready. And I'm not. So my apologies for not having that date ready to go. Let's see. Canceled. Arthur has advised. Yep. Saying yeah. 11 February 2023 at a location yet to be determined. I will keep you posted.
Perfect. And Denise, you had your hand up for announcement as well?
Yeah, it was an announcement that I sent you an email about from Neil. I'm not sure if it was already on your list for announcements.
Oh, no, go ahead, please. Yeah.
From Neil Hagland. Well, I'm just as unprepared as Kimberly. I'm so sorry. But, I did find the email here. It's about an event. Let's see. The Rockledge Rotary and Cocoa Rotary are planning an interclub social event for the 19th of November. We want to invite your club to join us. There are some details. So it's the November 19th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. There are food options. The estimated cost per person is $25, not including drinks. And what is it about? Let me see. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's like an interclub social event, and they would like to have a head count from us if there are people who'd like to join. So if there are people interested in joining, please let me or Sam know as soon as possible, because Neil Hagland, husband of our nice member Connie, would like to have the head count as soon as possible. And it's my fault that we didn't bring it up sooner, because I got the email while I was sick and it went over my head. So I'm completely sorry for short notice.
It's not a big deal. Denise, would you forward that email to me so I can put it in the newsletter?
Yes,
And
I will.
send it out to everybody. I'll just send the invitation out right now, or over to people.
I'll do it right now. So I think you'll have it now.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. One other announcement. What I'm going to try to do, we have one of our goals for this calendar year. One of our goals was to have a 100% Paul Harris Club, which is a pretty significant process. And all it really means is that every member achieves Paul Harris recognition. It doesn't mean that every member gives $1,000 or equivalent to become a Paul Harris. It just means that you've achieved it. And so that status if you're not familiar, that status can be conferred by someone who has points. So for example, if I have 1,000 points, I can say, Susie, you're amazing. Thank you so much for doing the newsletter. I just can't imagine anyone doing it better than you. And I could confer upon her 1,000 points, and that would make her a Paul Harris fellow for this year. Now, if we're all Paul Harris fellows for the year, then we get another special recognition as a club, which I think is really exciting and really fun. And we did this at my last club. It was a real fun activity, just kind of get everybody jazzed up and thinking about giving. So to that end, I want to facilitate that happening, and we need to be more aware of our giving. So I'm just going to show you, like, just for 2 seconds. This is if you log into my Rotary, you can actually pull up and see all the reports. You can see who's a Paul Harris so far. You can see your own Paul Harris status. It looks like this. So once you log in, you can see your own giving, your own contributions. And that's just logging into myrotary.com and then clicking on foundation. So I can share a link to that. I can put that into the newsletter as well, Susie. But beyond that, what I wanted to do is just kind of provide regular updates. And so here it is very quickly. This is where we're at today as a club. We have for the Rotary Foundation, we have 6 folks who have achieved their Rotary Foundation giving achievement inside of Rotary. For every Rotarian every year goal. And I did a presentation on this a couple of months back, and I can share that link with you if you're curious about what that is. But we've got 5 folks already in the club. So 5 folks already in the club that have achieved every Rotarian every year. We have 3 folks in our club who are sustaining members. And we have 1 person who's a Paul Harris already in terms of giving thus far. So in this calendar year already, someone's already given enough to get a Paul Harris in this year. So I'm going to provide regular updates on those moving forward. One thing that I would ask is, I didn't realize we did not have one. I don't have a Rotary Foundation chair for our club. And that was because of a clerical mistake, an oversight on our part. So if anyone's interested, regardless of whatever your position or your role is today, if you're interested in being our foundation chair, and helping me kind of keep track of some of those things, it's really easy. I literally just logged in 10 minutes before and pulled up the stats that I just gave you. What I'd like to do is on a regular basis, maybe monthly, to actually show these and talk about these things and then answer questions to see if anybody's got any kind of hangups or obstacles. And if you want to participate, if you want to help us achieve that goal, you have any kind of suggestions or ideas, we'd love to hear them on how to get our Paul Harris 100% club. So Kimberly?
So now you know what I'm going to say. Now you know what I'm going to say. I will repeat my offer and stress it again. If anyone joins a fellowship, and it's painless to join a fellowship, all you have to do is go on to the fellowship thing at rotary.com and sign up. Or if you go to convention, if you're going to Melbourne next year, which I'm doing, you can sign up there. Some of them are free. Some of them are just a nominal fee to join. If you join a fellowship, I have enough points. I don't know, you tell me, President Eco, I probably have enough points to make 10 people in this club Paul Harris.
Well, everybody needs to join the fellowship. I think your offer was 100 points if they joined the fellowship.
No, I was going to give them make them a Paul Harris.
I already joined. I'm already a member of a fellowship.
Are you a Paul Harris?
No.
Well, you will be as soon as I figure out how to make that happen.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm a member of a scuba diving fellowship.
Wonderful.
Well, there you go. There you go. So I will put you on the list, and as soon as I figure out how to make that happen, because I have to do something, and I haven't figured out what that something is yet. But
Kimberly, you can
promise
just
is there.
Google it and get it right off of our eye. There's just a document you fill out.
Okay,
I'll
well, I
I'll
don't have
help
a
you.
printer, so can I print it out online? That's always
Yeah.
been
Yep.
That's always been the problem, is printing things out, because I haven't hooked up my printer yet. It requires a teenager to help me do that, so I haven't done it yet.
I'll help you with that, Kimberly, and thank you so much for your generosity. So we have one winner already. Now keep in mind, I'll close it with this. Keep in mind your conveyance or your gifting of points for Paul Harris is something different from some of our other goals. So I can circle back around on that, and like I said, I'll link it in the newsletter. But there's still, every Rotarian every year is still a different thing, and there is some requirements, not requirements. There are some goals that we've set as a club for minimum giving for everyone. So just be aware of that as well. It's not just a magic thing and bam, we're done. We have some other goals as well. So I'll refresh everybody on those later on. But let's go ahead and move forward. Ed, if I could turn it over to you, we can do our Sergeant at Arms and maybe keep it brief. I know Miss Lynn has a wonderful presentation for us today.
All right, yeah, we'll move along quickly. First of all, let's just start out with some quick finds. Do a quick find if you haven't voted yet.
Oh, I haven't left yet. How much?
Count me as well.
Well, we have
Especially you.
voting all the time around here. So yeah, for non-citizens too. But yes, and if you haven't left yet, I'll let you decide how much you feel that that's worthy. So let's see. And so that's the quick find. Any birthdays, anniversaries coming up?
Yes.
Mike?
My oldest grandchild will be 16 on the 13th. He'll be 16 and he's 6'3".
Oh,
Wow.
Does he like any sport that involves a ball?
He's super at soccer, and it's part of the reason we're moving to Washington.
Awesome. Well, that's a
Watch
soccer
him and
state.
his brother
That's
play.
a soccer state.
Very fun. Well, happy birthday.
Thanks. Finn. His name is Finn. Finn McCallum.
Julie, your hand is up.
Yes, I have a sad dollar. RLI was canceled for this weekend, so unfortunately we won't be able to hold it.
Susie?
And I have a further sad dollar in the same vein. Even though I wasn't signed up for this one, I would have gone to the next one, except I'll be in Antarctica in February. So can't go to that one. Sorry.
Great excuse. I like it.
Enjoying that nice Antarctica summer, huh?
I still have to select my parka and my boots.
That's the way I'm going to feel next winter. Anybody else? Any other sad dollars? Denise?
I have a set. My godmother passed away, unfortunately, last Wednesday. She was already, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a medical emergency at the same time. Yeah, no, she was already in her 80s, and she had a heart failure, and she had literally the best death that anybody could wish. I mean, she had a do not resuscitate statement, so she was given morphine, and she in the hospital she went to sleep peacefully and just never woke up again. And that's, you know, I mean,
So sorry.
Yeah, we're very sad that we have to miss her, but we're very glad and happy that she got to go in such a peaceful way. So yeah, we're very happy with that in a weird sense. So but yeah, so I have the cremation on Friday, and she was from Suriname. We'll have a wake on Thursday, which involves lots of festivities and music, food, of course, and dancing with the coffin. So it's going to be a strange wake. I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect, but I just know they take the coffin on their shoulders and they dance around with it on the beat of the music, and they celebrate life. So it's, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that should be fascinating, and certainly our condolences.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Alana.
Hey everyone. I think you've probably seen Mum's note in the chat, but I have a sad dollar mixed with an optimistic dollar, as Mum never really decides to stick with one or the other. that mom has been diagnosed with cancer, with breast cancer specifically, but I think there's optimism in its treatment. She has a very, very good surgeon, very good doctors around her. The good thing about the previous year and a half was we've gotten to know the system a little bit more, and she's got a lot of medical professionals in her corner and working to make sure she gets back to health.
Well, certainly our thoughts are with you and Ailish and your family, and so,
That was definitely sad.
yeah.
Is Ailish with us today?
I
Yes,
sent a note
I'm
in the
here.
chat.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Hey,
Thank you
Ailish,
all so much. Yes, love.
if you could survive that bike crash the way you did, I'm sure you're gonna I can't think of the word. Do well on this one.
Kick ass,
Well-
that's the word.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. It's called kick ass, Michael.
Well, I
Yeah.
can just add to that. Hearing the comments from Denise, about her grandmother. Irish wakes are so much better. You'd really enjoy those so much better. if I happen to kick the bucket, which is unlikely.
I do not want you to
highly-
kick the bucket.
It's highly unlikely, it appears. So,
Let's just say I do not want to experience an Irish wake for a long time.
Yeah.
I know, darling. I know. I'm saying that by way of a little bit of levity.
Well, Jewish funerals there's no levity whatsoever. And
No, they're very
No, I
short.
was at one. They're very dour.
yes, well, yeah.
They're very
We'll
short.
save
It's the-
that
it's-
for another day, but
It's the
Yeah.
week of Shiva. It's the week of Shiva that really gets it.
no.
And in actual fact, Ed, it would probably be really interesting for you, to give a presentation on that. I would enjoy that. I would like to hear about it.
I certainly would try. I probably need to do some research because much to my parents' chagrin, I'm not up on that quite as much as I should be. But I could do some research and put something together sometime.
Right.
So,
Good.
all right.
Good.
My mom would be really proud of me. All right. Do we have any happy dollars?
I have one.
Kimberly.
So along the line of the theme of today, one of my younger sisters, they're all younger, one of my younger sisters had a lumpectomy yesterday because of breast cancer, and she's gone home and she is kicking cancer's butt. So the only thing she's worried about now is Jim Cantori showing up in her backyard because she lives in the Keys. And for those of you outside of the States who don't know, Jim Cantori works for the Weather Channel here. And anytime he shows up in your backyard, it's because Hurricane Fubar has shown up and you're all in a bunch of trouble now.
He was at my Publix yesterday, apparently doing a remote.
Was he now? Oh dear. You're screwed.
I have Ed.
And I have a happy dollar.
All right, go ahead.
Well, it's really a joke dollar to go along with Ailish's comments recently. The difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish wake? One less drunk. Laughing,
a lot of
crying.
That's great. That's a good one.
I think that's a cute one.
That's
All right.
As long as you're on the wedding side and not the wake side.
That's right.
I
George.
think that's not appropriate anymore.
Yeah, I have a happy dollar for Alana on her recent wedding.
Hey,
And a sad dollar for Ailish, but I want to say to Ailish that I had stage 3 throat cancer and I beat it with chemo and radiation after 6 weeks of both therapies, but it can be done. So sad dollar, happy, both, whatever.
Thank you so much, George. I so appreciate it. And you're looking wonderful, by the way. I meant to say that. Thank you.
You can do it.
Thank you. I have so much support and prayers and energy, and my house feels as if it's just filled with love. And I've never had that sensation before in this house, and it just feels wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you.
Roger.
Hey, this is happy dollar because we're leaving on a Mediterranean cruise on Friday, flying out of Miami if the hurricane will allow us to, and be back in December. So it's 3-year COVID delayed, but it'll be fun. We're looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, have fun. That sounds awesome. Yeah. That sounds like a much more interesting presentation than Jewish.
No.
So we'll put you ahead of
any
mine.
pictures. Oh, okay.
So, all right, Sam, I think we'll wrap it up with that and get on with our speaker.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Well, today's speaker, if you've been around for a bit, you already know who Lynn Kinney is. Lynn, you insisted on no introduction, so I'm going to turn it over to you. And I am so excited because I just got to hear this, and I'm glad this is being recorded. So I'm super excited to have this up on YouTube very soon. Lynn Kinney, welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Said host disabled participant sharing screen.
Try it one more time. I think you just beat me to the click.
Okay.
Nice way to goof on her.
Okay. Here we go.
You got it.
And then I'll just get this up here to share slideshow.
There's also one in the lower right-hand side, Lynn, that's easy to click on. It looks like a screen presentation in the bottom. I don't know if you ever used that one. It's next to the minus sign. You see how you can zoom in, zoom out at the very bottom right?
Okay.
Next to the minus sign, it looks like a presentation screen. Over to a little bit and right
Here.
there. Look, one more over. There you go. That one.
Okay.
You got it.
Well, I want to thank you, Sam, for even getting me going today so that my computer was working right. My name is Lynn Kinney. I want to keep this short so I can use all my time for the presentation. I shake because I have essential tremor. I'm not at all nervous. But the good thing about it is if you notice, I shake my head no. And can you imagine how many Rotary committees I'd be on if my head shook yes? So it's not a problem. I've been in Rotary since 1988. I'm an historian with Rotary Global History Fellowship. And I've been in 5 districts, done many roles. But this is a fascination for me. So let's get going and have some fun with history. The Mouse of War, the history of women in Rotary since 1911. In 1905, Paul Harris started Rotary in Chicago. And it was said that he was lonely at the time. He brought 4 businessmen together. And in 1906, they wrote their first constitution. And in that constitution, they stated that they only used the word, there was no gender. They only used the word persons. So they weren't intending to have women involved. The interesting thing about this historic picture is there really were the original 5 because Harry Ruggles didn't make it to the meeting. Now, many would agree that the addition of women to Rotary represented one of the greatest surges in membership since the addition of international clubs. The first international club was in 1910 in Winnipeg, Canada. Now, you really have to understand this presentation, not be upset with Rotary. You got to put your mindset back in the times. There were few women in Rotary at the time, and very few in the business professions. They didn't even have the right to vote. There were no women in other social organizations. Now, the movement for women to obtain the right to vote took 72 years, from 1848 to 1920. The movement, which you'll find was a movement for women in Rotary, took 76 years, from 1911 to 1987. The first convention for Rotary was held in Chicago in 1910. There were 16 clubs in attendance, and at that, they formed the National Association of Rotary Clubs. They had some discussion about allowing for women Rotary clubs or auxiliaries, and it was rejected. In 1911 in Minneapolis, Dr. Gertrude Stanton, an eye optician, she formed a club because she couldn't join the Rotary Club, exactly like Rotary. It had classifications, you had to bring a member in and approve them. They met weekly, they had speakers, the exact same thing. Over in Duluth, Minnesota, a woman by the name of Irene Buell, who was also an attorney and the first attorney in Duluth, Minnesota, she got together a number of women and she formed a club and wanted to call it Rotary. They existed from 1911 to 1917. It just so happened that the next Rotary convention was being held in 1912 in Duluth. There were 50 clubs in attendance, and this is where Rotary formed the International Association of Rotary. There were Rotary clubs from Great Britain, Ireland, Canada, because there were other places that were now forming clubs. At that delegation, at that convention, Ida and several women were delegates to this, and Ida addressed the convention, and she made an appeal for them to allow for women Rotary clubs, but it was rejected. From 1914 on, a number of boards took up the idea of having women auxiliaries or women in Rotary, and again, it was always turned down. Well, in 1921, 4 pioneering women, led by Alwilda Harvey, who happened to be the wife of the president of the Chicago Club, she got together the wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters of the Rotarians, and they held a meeting and a luncheon with 59 people in attendance, and they formed the Chicago Women of Rotary. Well, Rotary immediately was very upset about this because they had the Rotary name in there, and women couldn't have a Rotary club. So they told them they couldn't do this. So they did what all good wives, mothers, daughters, and sisters of Rotarians would do. They totally ignored them. Well, their membership grew to 250. But by 1923, when they wanted to incorporate as a nonprofit, that's when Rotary stepped in and said, you cannot have Rotary in your name. So they renamed themselves the Women of the Rotary Club of Chicago. They were able to do this because in 1920, the Rotary came out with a manual for their making an adjustment to their manual of procedures. And in that, They specifically prohibited women from becoming Rotary members and also prohibited them from using Rotary in the name of their clubs. But for the first time, they finally allowed for women auxiliary clubs. Over in the UK, Ms. Phillips started Bristol Venture Clubs. And these Bristol Venture Clubs, which were Rotary Auxiliary, they spread throughout Europe. In 1930, they merged with the Seroptimus Club, and the Seroptimus Club had been formed in Oakland in 1921 with the help of a Rotarian. Well, many of you have heard about Rotary Ann, but how did that come about? Well, there was a convention for Rotary being held in Houston, and the Rotarians on the West Coast decided to arrange for a train with Southern Pacific to take all those Rotarians to this convention. On that train was one woman, Anne Brunier, the wife of Harry Brunier. And Anne was very social. She would go between the cars and talk to everybody. So they started calling her Rotary Ann. By the time they got to the platform in Chicago, they were cheering Rotary Ann, and the name stuck. And in Oklahoma City in 1928, the first Rotary Ann Auxiliary was formed. Now, a lot of people say that Rotary Ann's sort of ended in the 80s, but any of you that have traveled, we all know that there are still Rotary Ann clubs in the United States and around the world. Over in England, a woman by the name of Marguerite Golding, who was a nurse, she decided to form an auxiliary that did not compete with the Rotary Anns in the United States or the venture clubs at the time. So she formed Inner Wheel. They held their first meeting in the cooling rooms of Harriet's Turkish bathhouse. When later asked, why in the world would you hold a meeting in such an unorthodox place? She said, because it was the only place that we could get free. In 1935, Paul Harris wrote This Rotarian Age. And in that, he expressed the hope that there would be clubs for all business and professional men and women and youths who are imbued with the ideal of service. In 1949, in Salmon, Idaho, a woman by the name of Edwina Nichols took over her husband's car dealership after he died, making her the first woman owner of a car dealership in the United States. Now, her husband had attended Rotary on a regular basis, so Edwina thought nothing of joining the Rotary Club, so she started attending. Many years later, when the members asked, why didn't you tell her that she wasn't really a Rotary member? They said, too many of us owed her money. Now, Edwina had a grandson by the name of Jack Selway, and Jack Selway started Rotary Global History Fellowship. In 1949, that was also the first year that Rotary allowed for women ambassadorial scholars. Now, from this year on, there still were a number of attempts to allow women in Rotary, even honorary women for Rotary, and it was always rejected. The year was 1976, and the mouse that roared is about to be born. In a small town of Duarte, California, in the foothills of Pasadena, there was a very small breakfast club that decided to grow their membership. So they brought in 3 women all at the same time, 2 principals and 1 psychologist. At the time, the district governor said, do not send in their full name, just send the initials of their first name. So they did, and the 3 women became members of their club. The problem is the following year, in 1977, they were having their 25th anniversary of the club, and there was an RI representative in attendance. The cat was out of the bag. There they were, front and center, 3 women. Rotary International told them, you have to terminate their membership or we will revoke your charter. Well, the members refused to terminate their membership. And they even made an appeal again to have women in Rotary. So, but it was to no avail. So in March of 1978, their charter was revoked. And the club members went out and they had pins made with an X through them and renamed themselves the Ex-Rotary Club of Duarte, California. Well, here comes the roaring mouse. In June of 1978, after their attempt at the Council on Legislation failed to allow for women in Rotary, this small Duarte club filed suit in LA Superior Court against Rotary International taking their charter and not allowing for women. The first ruling of this came in 1983 when Judge Max Dukes ruled against the Duarte Club. Well, they didn't give up. The Duarte Club then took this to the Appeals Court of California, and the Appeals Court ruled on September 16, 1986 in favor of the Duarte Club because of the Unruh Act in California, which bans discrimination in the workforce of any kind of not allowing women in. Now, you're probably wondering why they said a business would apply to this, but remember at that time, 80% of all the Rotarians in clubs were having their dues paid by their business. Well, Rotary International didn't like this. So they took this to the Supreme Court of California, and the Supreme Court refused to hear it. So they had no choice but to take this to the Supreme Court of the US. Up in Seattle, the Seattle International Club, which had only been chartered 2 years previous to this, they brought in 15 women all at the same time. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a picture of those 15 women. These are some that came back for a reunion because, of course, there were no cell phones back then. So they also filed suit when they brought these 15 in who became known as the Seattle 15. They filed suit in Seattle federal court that they not have their charter revoked. And they also filed a brief with the Supreme Court of the US in support of the Duarte Club. On May 4th, 1987, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously in favor of the Appeals Court of California and the Duarte Club. The vote was 7-0. There were 2 that abstained, Sandra Day O'Connor because her husband was a Rotarian, and Harry Blackman because he was an honorary Rotarian. Now this opened the door to all women in the US, just like the other ruling opened it only to women in California in 1986. This opened it to women in Rotary only in the US. But it had the effect that it also affected all service clubs. The only thing they didn't cover in their ruling was private clubs. In 1989, the Council on Legislation voted with a very sincere appeal by Frank Devlin to allow women into Rotary, and they voted so that in favor of women, and they could now come into clubs around the world. In 1987, in June, the Rotary International sent back the charter and an invoice dating back to September 16th, 1986, to the Duarte Club, nothing else, that was it. At the time, Sylvia Whitlock, who was going to become a president of the club, she attended the DG, the PETS meeting, I'm sorry, the meeting for district governors, the DG training. There were 310 men in attendance. And Sylvia said she had received a notice to be sure and bring us a tie and suit coat. This is their first banner on the left, because a district governor at that meeting said, "This is the case of the mouse that roared, that such a small club could make such a big impact on Rotary." Well, Sylvia really liked that. So she brought that back to her club, and they adopted that as their model, the mouse that roared. The one on the right is their latest banner that they have. And at the bottom is a little pin of a mouse with a Rotary symbol on it. And I'm wearing one that Sylvia Whitlock gave to me. Sylvia Whitlock, who is from Jamaica, became the first woman president of any Rotary club in the United States. She told me that after the Supreme Court ruling, she was overwhelmed by reporters. And later, one reporter asked her, "Now that you're in Rotary, will the food be any better?" And she said, "No, because we're not cooking." There were 8 first women district governors in 1995. And I had the privilege of traveling around and interviewing and videotaping all 7 that were living. The 8th person, Mimi Altman, had died, so I interviewed her daughter, who was also called Mimi Altman and was a Rotarian, and she said her mother, who was the one on the right, was bounced on the knee of Paul Harris when she was a baby. I'm going to go quickly through this. This is the first women RI trustees. And Stephanie Urchek is going to be our second woman president of RI. She has been nominated and accepted for that in year after next. There have been 10 RI trustees. These are the first women directors. Elizabeth Dimmeray was supposed to be the first RI treasurer, but she died before she took that role. There have been 23 women directors. This is the first women RI vice presidents. Ann Matthews was the very first one in 2013. And there have been 6, and Nikki Scott is currently a vice president. These are the first women past presidents of Rotary International of Great Britain and Ireland. They operate under the umbrella of Rotary International, but they have separate officers and some of their rules are different. There's a whole history just on RIBI. Well, we've come a long way since women were excluded from Rotary. As of a couple of weeks ago, there were 293,950 Rotarians, which represented about 25% of membership. As we look over the past, that mouse that roared has become a lioness. In the words of Doug Rugman, who is an historian and a Rotarian, he said, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be a path to your door. Rotary is a better mousetrap. We are no longer men Rotarians and women Rotarians. We are all Rotarians. And I conclude with our first woman president of Rotary International, Jennifer Jones. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting history.
Yeah, it's fascinating how far we've come, isn't it? And look how strong our clubs are that have women in them.
Yep.
Well, and one of the things to tell you is this is the short version of this presentation. There were a lot of other funny things and different things that I include when I do this for the district conference.
I love the part of the woman in Idaho whose husband died, and they said they keep her in the club because they all owe her too much money.
Yes.
Typical male.
Well, and I just discovered this is always evolving. I'm always researching. And I was at the Houston conference, and in the booth next to me was the guy, Bill Harvey, running genealogy. And he said, Lynn, I have a gavel from the Women's Rotary Club of Cleveland. And so, I'm sorry, Cincinnati. And he said, I'm sending it to you along with some articles. Well, I took those articles and it showed this club was called the Women's Rotary Club, or the Women's Business Rotary Club. They existed from November of 1914 to 2001. And I worked with the historian in Cincinnati, and there are over 900 articles on this club. And to this day, I cannot figure out how they operated under the radar of Rotary International and kept that name. So there's always interesting things that are coming up for this. Are there any questions?
Michael has his hand up.
Yes,
Okay.
Well, one of my proudest moments in Rotary is bringing the first woman into the Indian-Atlantic Rotary Club in around 1988, Sherry Dugan. And she would have been on a path to be president and others, but health issues took her out of working at Rotary. But we have a member of this club who is a past district governor, Jula. And
Yes,
we do.
my question is, Jula, are you still in the process of moving up in Rotary International?
Many people have asked me to.
Uh-huh.
I don't know that I will. It's a lot of time.
You are a fireball when it comes to Rotary. I've been so impressed with you. And
Oh.
She is. She'd be a good one.
I think our first women district governor was Jean Starkey, wasn't it?
No, there was Caroline before her.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was I think I was number 6.
Well, we'd
The
all vote
first-
for
The first female district governor in our district, right after her year, left our district.
it. Was that hard?
I don't know what her issue was, but I mean, that was before I was in Rotary, but from what I've heard, she just wasn't a pleasant person. Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know. But I don't know her, so I can't say she was or wasn't. I don't know.
Is it the truth?
Right.
Is
I
it
don't
fair
know.
to all concerned? Ailish's hand is up.
Yeah, I was one of the people who really encouraged Jula to go on to international level. I'd have loved to have seen
Yes,
her on
you
the
were.
board. But I also wonder we don't necessarily hear about with nasty men on the boards of Rotary, but somehow we always hear about nasty women, which I think is unfortunate.
I might argue that with you.
Somebody's got a hot mic. Somebody's got a hot, catchy mic.
I just remember one of the things I wanted to say is there's this Irish American organization called the Ancient Order of Hibernians. For those who don't know, Hibernia is an old name for Ireland. But in any case, the Ancient Order of Hibernians is still, the full members are all men, and they really are looking really frantically, for women to join, but they can only join as auxiliaries still. And all they want them to do is when they hold meetings and functions, to organize the meetings and functions and make the tea. So that's true, actually, because I attended several meetings, and then there was this famous Irish politician. His name was Daniel O'Connell. It was before Irish independence, and the English took him to court for, for treason or whatever trumped up thing they had on him. And he made what was known as very, very famous. You should look at it sometime. The speech from the dock. And, and I made my speech from the dock to the Ancient Order of Hibernians. And it was very interesting the reaction that they had to that.
God, I can only imagine. Did you tape it by any chance?
No, I didn't because I hadn't intended to make it, but the chairman of the board and the vice chair at one point made me really furious by saying something. I remember, along the lines of that if I wasn't prepared to put a kettle on the hob, well, then I wasn't welcome. So that got my hackles up, and up I got. And
did you tell them what to do, what they could do with their kettle?
No, I didn't. But I did tell them what they could do with their organization.
Because I put it in the chat. I did a makeup in Cheltenham and in England. And they were quite gracious, but they had no women members. And I did remind them as I was leaving that wasn't it wonderful that the roof hadn't fallen in just because they allowed me to have lunch with them.
Well, the Melbourne Rotary Club that meets in the evenings here for many, many years didn't let women in. It wasn't that they didn't let them in, they would let them join, but then they would not treat them very well. And so at one point, the district governor, I think it was it was probably 2004, he asked me to start attending those meetings to see if I could shake up their world a little bit. And honestly, everybody's always really nice to me, but I think I'm pretty scary. So they wouldn't be rude to me because, they could try and I could take them on if they decided to not be nice to me, but they were really nice to me. So I had nothing to say, so then someone said later, they talked to someone and they said, well, if more women were like Susie we'd let them join our club. So but I wasn't gonna join that bunch of ne'er-do-wells. Anyway, I think they let women in now, but there's a very small handful of women in that club, so it's pretty sad.
There are,
Club.
They do have women in there now, Susie. When I was governor, they asked me to help them bring women in. We brought 3 females in that year, one of which is still with the club, but they have a couple more now. The other 2 of the originals left.
Yeah. They were always nice to me. I had a good time. when I was
Yeah,
in there.
I never had a problem with that club. I still don't.
Yeah.
I can
Dave
tell
Dugan
you,
was in that club. Sherry Dugan's husband.
Mhm. Ex.
Yes.
I can tell you a funny story from when I first went into Rotary, since it was 1988. I first went into a club of 500, and I was doing a lot of traveling at that time, and I decided to stop in Pennsylvania at this one club. It just happened to be in my route to another business meeting, and I walked in, and they had a table set up with a rose on it in the kitchen, separate from them. And so they walked me in and sat me down there. So that lasted about 1 minute, and I
I was
got
gonna
up,
say how long.
marched into the other room and sat down with all of them. So
Yeah,
they
that would
and
that
then
would
they
have been the end for
proceeded
me.
to tell jokes and stuff that I might not like, but
Oh, I could out joke any of them. I'll tell you.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
My father was a fighter pilot. Nothing shocks me.
no, it didn't me either. So, and my dad was a fighter pilot also. So
So Lynn, on another note, is that your guitar or your husband's or?
it's my husband's. My husband plays. Yeah. And I'm sorry for the shading in here. It's very difficult in this room with this set computer to get the light just right. I've tried just everything and it just doesn't quite work.
None of us.
That's
were.
all right. We're fine.
Lynn, where are
Some
you?
of us won't even have our pictures on the screen at all. So you're
Lynn, where
a
are you?
step ahead of some of us.
I'm in Vero Beach, Florida.
I'm in Melbourne Beach, Florida. Hello, neighbor.
Hello, you're right up the way there.
I thought
Got
you
half
lived-
my shutters up today.
Oh, yeah. Storms are coming.
Yeah,
Barrier Island.
Well, you all stay safe out there. Hey, Denise, I still need your Rotary number so I can do the Paul Harris thing for you.
Good question. I have no idea what my
Ow.
Rotary number is. Do you know
Oh.
where I can find it?
Should be on your My Rotary. Ouch. Somebody's got a scratchy mic and it's painful. Sorry?
It's on WB, Denise.
That could be, okay, I'll look it up and I'll send it to you, Kimberly, then.
Okay, thank you.
I have
Thank you
some
so
good
much.
news. Roger Pelzer, when he returns from his Mediterranean trip, and before he goes to Japan, grandson is going, okay, and is going to provide me with the information to complete a member spotlight. It's been a long time.
I believe it. That'll give me plenty of time to make some stuff up. That'll be great.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome, sir.
Sam?
Well, I guess that's it. Conversation is completed right on time. So good job, everybody. I'm sure we were all watching the clock. Stop talking. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Thank you so much, Lynn. Always a pleasure. I'm so happy we got it recorded this time. So I'm going to post this up on YouTube. We'll share it out in our newsletter, and Susie will loop you in there so you can share the link with your pals as well. All right. And hopefully I can get up there. I'd love to come visit you guys in Vero at some point. Got to get out of my cave here one of these days.
Sam, I do have a long version on YouTube that was professionally done. And I can send that link to you. I have it on various cards, and I'll send that to you so you can share it with the club.
I'll put it on our Facebook page under this event so everybody knows the connection. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much again for joining us. Thanks everybody for coming today.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Full afternoon. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe in the storm, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Service above self.
Yeah,
Hi.
stay safe out there with the
Service above
with
self.
the hurricane.
everyone.
The only ones that got the memo about.
Bye-bye.